Here tonight for the first in our series of 4 early childhood education sessions this spring is what we're calling them. It's not quite spring outside, but that's okay. We're thinking positively here at Keep Indiana Learning. I am Marty Hoofer, the digital content manager at Keep Indiana Learning, and we are excited for this series. Kristen Parisi will be presenting 2 of the sessions, and Angelina Williams will be presenting 2 of the sessions. And tonight is Angelina. She is presenting on student leadership in early childhood classrooms. So we are happy to have her. She's the senior project manager at OE Castle with the state. And she brings a lot more knowledge than just that office implies. She has lots of a variety of experiences. So Angelina, I'll let you go into that as you get started. So Angelina, if you want to go ahead and share your screen and share your slides, and I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you all can see this.
Looks good.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Marty, for the great introduction, and thanks to Keep Indiana Learning for always providing such wonderful platforms for us to be able to share about early childhood education, which is something that I'm very, very passionate about. And as Marty mentioned, I am a senior project manager of early care and learning at the Office of Education, Early Childhood, Early Care, and Out of School Learning with the state of Indiana. And so I really love what I do. I have been in the field for over 25 years in a variety of capacities, and I am hoping that what I'm going to share about student leadership in early childhood classrooms is something that you're not unfamiliar with. And if you are, this will give you some great ideas and things that you can do in your classroom. So our objectives for this evening, we're going to talk about the importance of leadership. And so that there is a reason that we want to talk about the importance of it is because we want to know what it is that this is going to help us do in our classrooms. What is it going to help the children accomplish? And so we want to talk about that. Then we're going to take a step back and reflect on fixed versus a growth mindset. We're going to examine how to model and set the environment. We're going to discuss classroom jobs as leadership roles. And then we're going to review applicable Indiana foundations for early learning that relate to student leadership. So let's talk about the importance of leadership. So leadership skills allow children to have control of their lives and the ability to make things happen. So I want to pause there for just a minute and think about what word comes to mind when we talk about children having control of their lives and the ability to make things happen. So just think for just a moment. Autonomy, that's the word that comes to mind when I think about that. They have the autonomy to be able to do those things, to be able to make things happen. And it could be something as simple as deciding which center that they're going to participate in. Leadership also instills confidence and helps children solve problems creatively, work in a team, and work collaboratively with others. So let's pause there again for a minute. And I want you to think about what area of the classroom do you tend to see a lot of children working together to build something or to create something? What areas of your classroom? So we'll pause here for just a minute, and I want you to think about that, because sometimes we need to think about where and how this applies to us, right? And so I want to put you in your own world. Okay, so for me, I'm thinking the block area. I've seen tons of times, I've seen children playing together, creating ramps and building magnificent structures together. I've seen them in the art area sharing materials, swapping out colors. And so working collaboratively and working in a team to get something accomplished is really a skill that we want to encourage and develop. And last but not least, leadership gives children many opportunities to develop responsibility. So continuing on with this thought of the importance of leadership, I want to talk about the important part of classroom management. So when you have children that are engaged and that are they get to be in charge of something, you know, a lot of times you see their faces light up, you know, like, oh my gosh, I get to be the line leader today. Or, oh my goodness, I get to be the electrician. I get to cut on and off the lights. You know, they tend to have, so they have something tangible that they can do. And when you give children something tangible to do, you give them purpose, a lot of times it curves the behaviors. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we take a step back. Also, the importance of leadership, it helps you to think about, it gives that opportunity to learn about work and career education, because you're technically giving them a job to do, right? So let's think about the electrician. You can take that, just that word alone, and you can build on that. Like, what is an electrician? What does an electrician do? Maybe even tie that into having a community partner come in and talk about what they do in the community. So tying that to that work and career education. Leadership encourages social skills. So you may have some of those very, very, very shy children that don't really, you know, interact a lot, but they get to be the line leader today, or they may even get to be the caboose, because the caboose is a very important role in a classroom. And so they may get to have one of those important classroom jobs, and you may see them perk up. You may see them take more responsibility. You may see them interacting more with their peers just because they've had an opportunity to be in a leadership role. It also allows opportunity for children to be involved in natural routines of the day. So these, again, going back to that classroom management, these help with transitions, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the presentation. And so it helps to keep the flow of the classroom going. And it helps the children to learn what's getting ready to happen next. And when is there up, I'm on cue, it's my turn to step up and do my job. And it also teaches beginning literacy skills, because at the beginning of the year, especially when you're dealing with threes, fours, and fives, those young threes may not be able to recognize, and you may even have some fours and fives that may not be able to recognize print or understand what print, the concept of print. But then when we start tying those classroom jobs to names, to their names, we start tying those classroom jobs to their pictures. They get to know and recognize their peers. They can tell you who the line leader is going to be, because they can recognize the L and the L in the written in the print. And so we are encouraging those early literacy skills by making sure that we're printing those classroom jobs in regular print with an upper and lowercase letters as they would see it in real world. And so now let's take a minute to take a step back. And so this is a time where I want for you to think about what we've already talked about and what we've discussed, how that applies to your current classroom, and maybe some thought about what is it that's been said so far that I have applied, that I do see going on in my classroom, or maybe that I don't see going on in my classroom, and how curious you can be to learn about a fixed and a growth mindset. So let's just take a moment to think for just a minute. Think about what we've talked about. And if you have any questions, please feel free to either type in the chat, or you can unmute and ask a question as you see fit.
And Angelina, this is Marty. Just while we're paused here for a second, could you click the button, I think maybe fourth from the right, to make your slides larger? Because right now we're seeing 2 slides. Is there any way you can make the main slide bigger? That one, I
Fourth
think.
from the right, you said?
Oh, no, I think I meant fourth from the left.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think that's the one.
I clicked it, and did anything happen?
No, nothing happened. So that was the wrong button. So you can just click that button again.
Okay.
And we just won't worry about it. No worries.
Okay. Is
Thank
it
you.
maybe this button? No.
Nope.
That's all right.
No
Okay,
worries.
can you see the slides though?
Oh, absolutely. We can see the slides just fine.
Okay, all right. All right, so first, let's talk about a mindset change. And I want to talk about the two pictures that we see here in front of us. So you have one picture on the left, and it has a picture of a person with a brain with a lock inside of it, and it's a closed lock. And then on the right, we have a person and a brain that has a plant inside of it. And so I want to, even though we know that this is talking about a fixed and a growth mindset, I want you to think about just the visual image and what comes to mind when you look at the brain with the lock and the brain with the plant. So outside of saying, oh, well, this brain looks fixed and this brain is representing a growth mindset, just what comes to mind when you think about that? What are some words that automatically pop in your head? Just think about that for just a minute, and then I'll share what it means to me or what comes to my mind. So looking at the brain that is on the left with the lock, I think you're closed-minded. Maybe you're not open to new ideas. And thinking about that lock, what if you lose the key to the lock, and then you'll never be able to open up to those new ideas, right? And so maybe that lost key represents lost opportunities. And then looking at the brain on the right that has the plant, there are lots of things that it takes for a plant to grow and to flourish, right? And so you need soil, you need to water the plant, you need to care and look out for the plant. And so even though we as the adults in our classrooms, we sometimes take our authority as the end all be all when we're actually in a position to be learners, because each child that comes into that classroom represents a new opportunity for us to learn something. We're learning about their home environments, we're learning about their special personalities and how they interact with ours and others in the classroom, and we're learning about all of those unique and defined features that they have that brings joy and difference to the classroom, right? And so having that growth mindset is really going to help when you think about what we're getting ready to talk to now, and I'll share that here on this next slide. So I want to try and convince you to think about changing your discipline thinking to guidance thinking. And this comes from a guidance guide for early childhood leaders, strengthening relationships with the children, families, and colleagues, written by Dr. Dan Gartrell in 2020. And I really, really loved this guide because it brought so much reflection to just times that I had in the classroom, coaching other teachers, and just working with children. And you can be amazed working with children because you do learn so much from day to day and from year to year. And so I wanted to share this because a lot of times we looked positively at the word discipline, right? Because when we take the word apart, to disciple means to teach. And so we typically would think that when you think about discipline, discipline is you're teaching the children what you want them to do versus what you don't want them to do, right? But I want to take a step back, like we mentioned, and let's look at not discipline, but let's look at guidance. Let's look at guiding the children and being there to help set them up for success and taking away some of those negative connotations. Because a lot of times when we think about discipline, people relate discipline to punishment, right? And so if we change, even just changing that word can help us in our mindsets to do something different. So let's look at a couple of different things. So let's try to change from discipline thinking to that guidance thinking. So number one, challenging children to challenge children. So looking at the fact that this is not something that is something that they are doing to be aggressive or doing to upset the rules in the classroom, but maybe they're challenged because they're dealing with stress, stresses that maybe we don't know about and don't understand. And then that gets into number two, where a lot of times we talk about as educators and being service people that service others in our fields. And we talk a lot about, oh, you know, to be a great teacher, you really need to have patience. And, you know, sometimes do we really think sometimes patience wears out, doesn't it? It tends, sometimes it can wear out. And so being patient, maybe we need to change that to that guidance thinking, to being understanding more of maybe where the behaviors are coming from and how best to help them and guide them to deal with that stress and to have a more productive outcome. And then lastly, that goes to number three, where we talk about the difference between misbehavior and mistaken behavior, because misbehavior implies that it was intentional, that the child had some intentionality in doing what they were doing. Whereas mistaken behavior is maybe this behavior is a result of a need not being met. And so I wanted to share that because when you're thinking about classroom jobs and leadership in the classroom, you are providing opportunities for these children to have, to be a model. You're providing an opportunity for these children to have interaction with their peers. You're providing these opportunities that can change and give them a different mindset, the child themselves a different mindset on how maybe they can react to a situation that doesn't go on in your classroom and is maybe going on at home. So looking at this photograph, it goes back to the picture on the right of the person with the plant that was in their brain, right? We want to model, and we want to set the environment. So some of the ways that we can do this, we can model leadership behavior to the children, because children learn from seeing what others do. Tell the child what you are doing and why you are doing it. And so, you know, sharing what it is that's going on, talking them through that day. And then, you know, all of that vocabulary, you know, they are benefiting from the vocabulary that you're using. They're learning new words. They're learning things in context. So just think about that. Another thing that you can do is teach children how to see things from another's point of view. Good communication is a key component to being an effective leader. So teach children how to listen carefully and how to respond to others in a calm and a respectful way. Help children build self-confidence. Give children opportunities to do a good job and offer praise when appropriate. And try not to just do, hey, you did a great job. Actually talk about what it is that they did and share, oh, I really liked how you used the color purple to color that house. Tell me more about your picture. Or I really loved how you placed the round block on top. I wonder what would happen if we placed the triangle block on top instead. You know, so using those words, again, using that vocabulary, introducing them to those early literacy skills. Let's help children build self-confidence, right? So give children opportunities to learn to solve their own problems. And you know, talk about how proud you are when they're doing things, right? Find ways to create problem-solving situations and give children the opportunity to take leadership roles in the classroom. And so having classroom jobs and having opportunities for children to do something that is not the norm, you know, that helps out, and it teaches them that, hey, this is something that my teacher has given me responsibility to do, and I take pride in that. Teach children how to work with others in a team situation. You know, group projects or sports activities, like one really good activity is tug of war. It may sound antiquated, right? But tug of war is a really great way to get children to interact with one another, you know, and taking those sides, working together, building, you know, taking pictures of pre-built structures and then seeing if a group of children can replicate what's on the picture. That's another way to do that. Assist children to develop a plan or strategy to address a problem or a situation. Encourage children to pursue things that interest them. Encourage parents to look for leadership opportunities at home. And so this is one that I really like, because you can take this information and share this information with your parents. And so if you're having regular communication, you could talk about how you have leadership roles in your classroom, and then maybe even encourage the parents. So what does little Johnny help out with at home? Or what does Susie have the opportunity to do to help you with household chores, or maybe to help you with their brother or their little brother or their little sister? Or when you go over to, an in-law's house, do they have opportunities to help out with their cousins? Do they have opportunities to push the cart when they're in the grocery store? Just different things that you can share with the parents to help them understand that those leadership opportunities are going to help their child with that autonomy that we're trying to build, and also that self-confidence. And then encourage communication and action as best as you can, because leadership involves speaking up and taking action. And so you can encourage children's leadership abilities by suggesting projects or identifying problems that may be important to them and helping them come up with suggestions for actions and possible solutions. And so it could be something as simple as little Susie comes over to you and she's upset because someone took her toy. And so you could take the time to stop and just share with them, well, how could you handle this situation? What could you do? What could you do? Are there other things around that maybe you can do to make you feel better? And then, that helps that child to think about that conflict resolution, if they're, so that they don't go back and argue or yank toys or start to hit one another. You're helping them learn how to solve those problems and deal with conflict, and teaching them about conflict resolution. And so I always like to tie in some research. And so according to Maulding and Leonard, children, regardless of socioeconomic background, begin enthusiastic and optimistic and eager to learn. As we move to beginnings of child development and onto preschool, the early successes decline for many children. So remember that early school experiences play a large role. So what we're doing in the early years, we know that the early years are the important years. And so what we're doing, all the modeling and the classroom management and how we handle conflicts, the children are watching us as those models. And so I want for you to think about that and think about how best you could then structure some of these classroom jobs. So let's talk a little bit. Let's pause here for a minute and think about everything that we've talked about thus far, and using all of that information, going from discipline thinking to guidance thinking. If you're not currently using classroom jobs, how can you use classroom jobs? And then if you are using classroom jobs, is it time to maybe switch them up? Is there something different that you could do? So let's take a look at that now. So how can we use classroom jobs? So you have traditional classroom jobs, and some traditional classroom jobs may include a line leader. And so, I'm just going to break it down Barney style, not that you all don't know what these are, but there may be some in this list that are not very familiar to you. So a line leader is that person that gets to lead the line wherever it is you're going when you're leaving your classroom. And then you have the electrician. The electrician is the person that gets to cut off and on the lights for you. You have your table cleaner for those that are allowed to let the children spray the tables before meals and after maybe a messy activity. Then you have the door holder, so the person that holds the door for the classroom as they are leaving and entering a space. You have a snack helper, whether it be a breakfast helper or a PM snack helper, as you see there on the board. They are the ones that help to pass out the straws or pass out the napkins and prepare the table for snack. Then you have your calendar helper, and that's that person that's going to come up in front of the class and go over the calendar activities with you. And then you have your caboose. And for us, In our classroom, when we had a caboose, the caboose was the person that held on to our binders for us, or they may have held on to our pointer or our whistle. And so they got to hold on to something that was necessary for us to leave our classroom and be in another space. And so, you know, they had something very specific. And then once we got to that other space, they got to pass that along. So I wanted to point out the picture that is on the right. So when we started out in the beginning of the year, because we had a mixed age groups, we had 3s, 4s, and 5s. We wanted to make sure that the children were able to recognize the job. So we always kept the jobs in the same order on the board. And what we did with 20 children, we would evenly rotate the pictures so that each day there was, so we had about 7 or 8 jobs, and each day it would rotate through all of the pictures. And within a month, all of the children had an opportunity to be either line leader or caboose and some of the other jobs. So we used pictures so that the children could become familiar with their peers, and so that they could become familiar with, oh, that's me that has this job today. And then after the mid-year, as we came back in January, we started using the children's names because we had been working on name recognition. And so worked out really well doing it that way, but please feel free to do it the best way that works best for you and your classroom. So then there are more jobs. So there are jobs at transitions. And so you may have certain jobs that are in place as you are transitioning from one space to another. So for instance, I used a lot of, I created like my shapes in different colors and I attached them to popsicle sticks. And so I may have a friend who I see that may have a lot of energy. They may be a little busy, and I will pull that out and say, hey, can you hold on to these? And when we're getting ready to walk out in the hallway, would you pass those back to me? Or would you like to come up to the front and you can hold them up for me and show your friends what we're talking about? And that immediately turned into a job that we had at transitions. And so, you know, keeping those transitions, keeping them busy during those transitions can help prevent from some unwanted behaviors to kind of happen. And then you have jobs that are as reinforcers. So a child does something you've asked them to do. Maybe they have been having a difficult time staying on task, and they actually completed that task. And then you use a special job as a reward for them staying on task. And so you can use jobs in that manner. You may have a special assignment. So like when I worked in the school system, our pre-K classroom was actually in an elementary school, and they did allow for students, as long as they had a partner, to walk down to the office, and that included our 4-year-olds. And so we could have them pair with another partner to take something to the office, and that was the special assignment. And so we had, you know, a little special job pass for them to be able to use for that. Then you have surprise helper jobs. And so you could be very creative and have the jobs maybe in a bag and have the children pull what they're going to do for the day. And so the surprise helper job may be something, they pull the surprise helper card and you get to choose, or you let them choose what it is that they want to do, or you have maybe something very special set aside for those surprise helpers. And then you also have choice helper jobs. So that is when the children can take either their picture or their name, and they get to come in and choose what job that they want to have for the day. And so that helps out with that autonomy and things as well. And so I hope that sharing some of the information that I have has helped out with just thinking about using the jobs in a different way, thinking about that classroom management and how you can use these, especially that are on this slide, to be able to come up with something different. And so Now, what I'd like to do is share with you, because we like to tie everything back to a standard. And for us in the early childhood realm, there are the early learning foundations. And so those are like academic standards for children birth to age 5. And so with the early learning foundations, being a leader is applicable in so many ways. And I wanted to share those with you before we ended our time tonight together. And so let's look at some of these. So you have ELA 1.1, demonstrate receptive communication. ELA 1.2, demonstrate expressive communication. So receptive is the information that they're taking in, and expression is how they are expressing themselves through means of communication. Then demonstrating the ability to engage in conversations. They're doing this when they are in a position of leadership. Demonstrate awareness and understanding of concepts of print. We talked about that in the beginning of the year, they may not be able to understand those concepts of print, but as they move on throughout the course of the year, they recognize that, the top one is the line leader, the bottom one is the caboose, the one that begins with an E is the electrician. This is my friend, Johnny. This is my friend, Sue. And then they can start looking at it by their names. And so you're helping them with the awareness and understanding of the concepts of print. They're also demonstrating self-awareness and confidence in being a leader. And then you look at the social and emotional. They demonstrate self-control and relationship skills. The approaches to learning, they demonstrate initiative and self-direction. They demonstrate development of sustained attention and persistence. And then you look at the social studies, they demonstrate a development of self. They demonstrate the awareness of foundations of government. And so that's a really big way of saying that they understand that there's a process and a way to do things. And they've been given certain responsibilities in their classroom. And then that also goes along similarly with demonstrate awareness of citizenship. And so if you did not have your classroom jobs tied to any of the early learning foundations, here is, and these are not all inclusive, there are many other ones that are applicable to children and leadership, student leaders in the classroom. And so feel free to reference those. You can go to the Indiana Department of Education's website and under their early learning tab and pull down the most current version of the Indiana Early Learning Foundation. And so I wanted to share this slide. And so the little girl with all her oomph says, too often kids are expected to grow up too quickly and before they are ready. There are only little ones. Let them live and thrive in it. And so what better way to thrive than to learn about becoming a leader and being a leader and becoming self-assured, self-confidence, building that self-esteem. And so I shared this picture, the picture that's in the middle, because really short story. These two young ladies at the beginning of the year, very shy, very, very shy. Very smart though, and they always just were very nervous about showing things that they had accomplished or things that they were creating. And they took the time after being with us, throughout the course of the year. I'd say this picture was taken in February, close to March timeframe. They were so confident in what they were writing. They wrote out all of their numbers. And it just really amazed me. They were confident and enough to do that and to come and get one of us and ask us to take a picture of what they had done. And then the last picture to the right, this little boy was afraid of everything. He didn't want to touch anything. He didn't want to participate in anything that he didn't know. So really, it wasn't a sensory issue. It was no, I don't want to. That was his answer to almost everything. No, I don't want to. And so we finally just him classroom jobs, him being able to, hey, why don't you come help me do this? Or I wonder what would happen if, And so they were doing a science experiment with one of the student leaders, and he was really interested, and he was doing it all on his own. And so it was really amazing. And these are the types of things that I wanted you to see that can happen by you just encouraging student leaders in your classroom, modeling the leadership, having them take on different roles, encouraging collaboration and working with others, and helping them with conflict resolution will just make the way for them to be the best that they can be, and thrive in doing just so. So in summary, we talked about the importance of leadership. We took a step back and reflected on fixed versus a growth mindset. We examined how to model and set the environment and discuss classroom jobs as leadership roles. And then we reviewed applicable Indiana foundations of early learning. And so I really hope that you had an opportunity to get something out of this presentation tonight. And I just want to open it up right now for any questions or concerns that anyone may have.
I'm back. It's Marty. We don't have any questions. Thank you for putting up the PGP certificate. I will also put that in the chat so folks can find that. Thank you. So let me type that in. I can't talk and type at the same time. There we go. So that's in the chat. But Angelina, two things you said that I wanted to come back to that I just, as always, I learned so much from you and Kristen, but I loved what you talked about with discipline thinking versus guidance thinking, making that shift from discipline to guidance, and just that word disciple, and, thinking about like being a shepherd. They don't beat their sheep into submission. They show them how to walk the path. And so I really like that thought.
Thank you.
But then here was my mind-blowing moment for this evening. There has to be one.
Yes.
Here's the one that I was like, I don't think anything's going to top this one tonight. I had never thought about that career education can start in an early childhood classroom.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, it can.
Yes. And I mean, okay, well, since I taught middle school, not that you can't have classroom jobs in a middle school classroom, you totally can. Yeah. But you were talking about an electrician who's the one that turns on and off the lights. I thought, oh, that's a really cute job. And that's really where I stopped thinking about it, was that's a cute job. And then you talked about, let's talk about what is an electrician and what do they do, and maybe have one come in and talk, and building that community concept. And oh my word. Wow. Love it.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate, I always appreciate you. And I hope that everyone here on that's watching has an opportunity to have learned something, or had that one thing out of the presentation that sticks with you and can help you, just do different things that benefit the children in your classroom.
Yes, absolutely. And this is just the first in our 4-part series. 2 weeks from tonight, on February 1st, unlocking communication needs in a preschool classroom. That's also at 6:30. Then Angelina, you're back 4 weeks from tonight, supporting behaviors in multi-age classrooms. And I know you talked a little bit tonight about those multi-age classrooms. And so diving into that a little deeper will be fantastic. And then finally, we end on March 1st, also at 6:30, with early childhood accreditation. So lots of great things coming. And don't think that for our viewers, that just because I'm just a teacher, which I hate that phrase, no one is ever just a teacher, that you don't need the accreditation information. Not the case at all. To have an understanding of what it takes to be accredited, helps you understand the why behind what you're doing. And if we understand the why behind we're doing things, we often do it better and have a better attitude about it.
Yes, and Kristen, I'm sure, is going to make it amazing. And break it down for you all so that it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, Angelina. Viewers, we thank you. We appreciate you. We hope you'll come back for other Keep Indiana Learning events. So thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you.